Edward Hartwell opens the glass case in the palace's private vault. His fingers stop over the empty velvet. Right there, until a few weeks ago, sat the diamond bracelet Princess Diana wore on her wedding day. No note, no signature, no reason logged anywhere. Just the impression sunk into the velvet, in the exact shape of a jewel that isn't there anymore. I'm Edmund Hale, and by the end of that week, 4 names would be reduced to 1. Because 4 people had access to that vault. Only 4. The King, Prince William, Princess Catherine, and Camilla. Hartwell said nothing at first. Jewelry doesn't wander off. Not from a room like that, behind a door like that. But he'd worked in that building long enough to know that the wrong word to the wrong person ends careers. So he took the problem to the one man in the palace he trusted. Marcus James had been a security officer there for 14 years. 36 years old. He knew every corridor, every protocol, every face on every rota. He asked Hartwell one question. When did someone last confirm it was there? 3 weeks earlier. 3 weeks. Long enough for a trail to go cold. Long enough for whoever took it to have finished whatever they'd started. That afternoon, Marcus pulled the vault access logs. Camilla had entered 18 times in a month. 18. Alone every time. That isn't how it works. A queen consort doesn't wander into a strong room the way you'd wander into a kitchen. Visits are logged, escorted, scheduled around fittings and events. 18 unaccompanied entries in 30 days isn't a pattern of interest. It's a pattern of purpose. And there was a second thing in those logs that Marcus noticed before anyone else did. The times. Not one of those 18 entries happened during working hours. Every single one fell in the gap between the day staff leaving and the night rota signing on. A window of about 40 minutes when the corridor outside that vault is emptier than at any other point in the day. You don't find that window by accident, you find it by watching. Marcus requested the cameras. The first visit was 4 weeks back. She enters. She keys a code. The door releases. She's inside for 8 minutes. And when she comes out, she's carrying her bag differently. He watched all 18, everyone the same, in alone, out quickly. And the bag flat going in, not flat coming out. That was the moment it stopped being an administrative error. Marcus followed the next thread. Where did she go afterwards? City cameras answered it. After several of those visits, the car went to the same address in London. A jeweler's. Reinhardt Fine Jewels. Not a shop, there's no window display at a place like that. It's where historic pieces go to be altered, reset, rebuilt, turned into something that no longer resembles what it was. And this is where Marcus had a decision to make, because he'd reached the edge of what a security officer is allowed to do. He could have stopped. He could have written a report, filed it upwards, and let it disappear into whatever drawer these things disappear into. Nobody would have blamed him. In that building, the safest thing a man in his position can do is notice nothing. He didn't stop. Marcus took it to Detective Inspector Sarah Chen, who handles matters the palace prefers to keep quiet, and asked her to find out what work Reinhardt had taken in recently. What Chen found changed the shape of the whole thing. The firm didn't only restore, it had a client list of private collectors, the kind who pay in the millions for objects with a royal history and no intention of ever displaying them publicly. And 3 weeks earlier, someone had commissioned a specific job: strip an antique bracelet entirely, remove every stone, rebuild it as something else. Something that could be sold without a single person recognizing where it came from. The payment records and the correspondence pointed to one name: Camilla. If you want to know what she was actually doing with the money, because that's the part that turns this from a theft into something much colder, subscribe and stay with me, because it comes at the end. Chain kept pulling, and underneath the commission she found the buyer, a private collector in Dubai, extremely wealthy, prepared to pay £5 million for one bracelet. Not any bracelet. That one. The transaction was days away. And the buyer's terms are worth hearing, because they tell you what kind of sale this was. He didn't want provenance papers. He didn't want a certificate or a history or anything that tied the stones to a name. He wanted the opposite, a piece with no past at all. That is what the remodeling was for. Not to make it beautiful, to make it anonymous. A bracelet that had been photographed on Diana's wrist would leave that workshop as an object nobody on earth could identify. So this was never about taking a piece of jewelry. It was about converting it into stones, into cash, into a number in an account, and out of the country before anyone opened that glass case again. Marcus knew what he had. He also knew he couldn't walk up to the queen consort with a suspicion. He needed something that couldn't be argued with. He took it to Captain Richard Wells, head of palace security. The jeweler had a rendering of the finished piece. There was footage of her carrying it. There were 18 logged entries. There were communications with Dubai. Wells listened to all of it without interrupting once. Are you certain it was her? Completely, and we act now, or it leaves the country and it's gone. Wells nodded slowly and said the only thing left to say. He needed authorization from Prince William. This wasn't something he could do alone. An hour later, William had the full file in front of him. His reaction was ice. Camilla is taking my mother's jewelry, and she was going to sell it. Yes, sir. He stood up. I want it back, and I want to know exactly what she was planning. That same afternoon, Camilla was asked to a private room in the palace. William was there. So was the king. So was Chen, and Marcus, standing quietly by the door. William didn't build up to it. My mother's bracelet is gone from the vault. There's footage of you taking it. There are records of you delivering it to a jeweler in London. And there is correspondence about a sale to a collector in Dubai. She didn't move. William, that's absurd. I have no idea what you're talking about. Then explain. 18 entries in the access log in 1 month. I went to look at the jewelry. That isn't a crime. 18 times. Alone. Carrying it out each time. Nobody filled the silence. Then Chen spoke. We have the bracelet. It was intercepted before it left the country. Your fingerprints are on the packing case. Your signature is on the jeweler's record. Camilla looked at each face in the room. Her eyes stopped on Marcus, standing by the door. It was the guard, she said. He's done this. He's lying about all of it. Marcus didn't answer. He simply held her gaze. William got to his feet. Inspector Chen, proceed with a formal investigation. I want charges. I want every part of it documented. My mother wasn't just robbed. This family was betrayed. She left the palace that night under supervision. The bracelet went back into the vault, and the king said nothing. That detail has stayed with everyone who was in that room. Charles sat through the entire thing, the footage, the records, the accusation, his son's voice, and never spoke once. Not to defend her, not to question the evidence, not to ask for time. Whatever he understood in that hour, he understood it in silence. And then the rest of it came out. Because this hadn't started 3 weeks earlier. It had started months before, and Marcus had only found the last chapter. She had been studying which pieces could be moved without being missed quickly, the ones checked twice a year instead of twice a month. She had built contacts in the antiques trade. She had been quietly locating buyers. William ordered a full review of her finances, separate accounts, international transfers, a pattern of concealment going back years. So here's the answer I promised you. Not what she took. Why? She was building something she could keep. Everything Camilla has, she has because Charles is alive. The title, the residences, the jewels which are lent never owned, the staff, the protection, the position at the center of it all. The day the king dies, every single one of those things passes to William and Catherine, and she becomes what the system has always quietly intended her to be, a widow in a house somewhere, with a courtesy title and a diary that empties out. She has watched that arithmetic her entire married life, and somewhere in it, she stopped waiting to find out what William would decide to leave her. £5 million isn't greed when you've done that maths. It's an exit. That's what the 18 visits were. Not a woman stealing a bracelet, a woman building a life that didn't depend on anyone's permission. Marcus James was promoted, the officer who didn't look away, who trusted what the logs told him, even when the answer pointed at the second most powerful person in the building. He hasn't given an interview. He hasn't written a book. By every account, he went back to work the following week and carried on doing the same job in the same corridors, which is probably why he was the right man to find it in the first place. And Edward Hartwell, the butler who opened that case, still does the inventory. Same routine, same list. Except now the checks happen monthly, and the vault logs are reviewed by someone who doesn't work in that building. That is the part of this story that will outlast everyone in it. Not a bracelet, not a court case, a procedure quietly rewritten because for 3 weeks nobody noticed that the most photographed piece of jewelry in the family had simply gone. So tell me honestly down in the comments, was that a theft, or was it a woman who finally understood she was never going to be given anything at all? I'm Edmund Hale. See you next time.